Good evening, everybody. This is Pastor Darrell Elliott, and I'm here with my lovely wife, Kimberly. And I'm glad we can all come together for this family conversation. A little bit going on.
Hey.
so, so we figured this would be a good time to just be able to share and discuss the things that we see that's taking place in the body of Christ. And Tye Tribbett said a few things got a few people stirred up. So he said that the current situation in the church.
First, give context.
All right.
Where was he?
He was on the Breakfast Club.
And why is he on the Breakfast Club?
Well, he was there just discussing the modern church, and they talked about going to church, right? And you saw quite a bit, so
I did.
So you can go ahead and also give some context as well.
Well, I do believe he's promoting something that he has now. So he's doing some radio interviews, and he went on the Breakfast Club talking about church as it is today.
Right.
And I actually thought it was a pretty good discussion between himself and the host, where he was asking them how they feel about the church and do they go and
right,
that whole thing. So
right, and you're all welcome to chime in on this as well. So we'll be highlighting any comments that may come up in this discussion. But we've had quite a bit of discussion about the church. We've had a lot of discussion in terms of how we are doing church now. A lot of things have changed. Things were actually changing pre-COVID, but once COVID happened, it seemed to accelerate the change. So now we're at this place where a lot of churches are forced to transition from one way of functioning and doing things to another way. And some people seem to be in disagreement with that idea.
But church always has changed. Church always will change, just like everything else in our society and culture undergoes a reformatting of how we do things and how we organize ourselves and how we conduct our presentations, how we get information. So I feel like the church has always changed throughout history.
Always.
I expect it to change. I hope it's going to change. And I hope that we don't think that everything is going to stay the same always.
Well, I wonder how you all feel out there, but I've seen a split in people's sentiments about it.
I was so surprised. I was really, really surprised that people had such a reaction to what he said.
They did.
I watched the whole thing and I was like, okay, I get what he's saying, why he's saying it. So I was actually really surprised that people said they want to cancel him or they were so angry at his perspective.
They were a little upset. Well, I put up a post today. I said something. I said whenever people are saying things about the church it feels like it's negative. And it could be about the church's shortcomings, that they become offended. And often I think that those people tend to lack self-awareness. And so when they act out in that lack of self-awareness because they take it very personal, they become very offended. And I said that one, we know that the way we do church has been going on a very, very long time historically. So in the realm of change, we've taken a long time to change with the times. We have pretty much remained constant in how we do church now versus other institutions.
I'm a little different. I don't think that all churches have to change.
Okay.
I think that people who like traditional church can continue to do that if that's what they want to do. But we also have to recognize that as far as new growth in the church,
right,
that's going to be where we have more innovative people who are in tune with, like what Tye Tribbett said, the pulse of the people, their lives, what's going on today, the issues that people are dealing with, and being able to have ministry that tackles that. So I think that people who like institutional church or traditional church were offended, and I can totally understand why, because to them, that speaks to them. But as far as people who are unchurched, I don't think that the institution, the way church is done traditionally, is going to um, be able to speak to certain people.
Right. And the thing is that there are so many denominations
Right.
that you can certainly have a buffet of styles of worship.
Mm-hmm.
You can certainly be able to to have your pick of what style of worship you want to engage in, which was part of why denominations existed,
Right.
because different people had different ideas as to how we may carry out what in this case is ceremonial worship. When we all come together, usually on a Sunday, some denominations do other days, Saturday or whatever, and that was always, you had your choice of what you wanted to do. But now the issue is that a lot of churches are becoming thinner, and the
Mm-hmm.
current generation is not as connected to coming to church on a consistent basis. So whatever was the way people worshiped, it was still consistent. Now we have a lot more, and I'm not using this term in a negative way, but we have a lot more inconsistent ways that we come together in worship. So some are online, some only go to conferences, some do concerts, some worship at home with their family. So it has changed so much. And in light of the early church, which did not go to a building, but they went house to house, that was a form
Right.
of worship.
But I think that we have to be mindful that our lives have changed. So people don't, it's not like it used to be where people would move to a neighborhood, they worked in a neighborhood, they went to school in the neighborhood, and they went to church in the neighborhood. I mean, we're busing our children into school. We are zooming them into class. We are working remotely from home for companies that we may or may not step into the building. So why would we think that church would not be undergoing the same changes that everybody's having in their daily lives? Most people are moving around constantly. We're in a mobile society.
Right.
So the need for a virtual church, hybrid church is absolutely necessary, because you may not have people who live in a set community with their family for their whole life. I
Right.
mean, you have a whole new generation that can barely afford housing. So how do you expect that they can even buy a home in the area where their mother lives, their aunt lives, and their church is? People have to um get in where they fit it. They can't have to go where they can afford. They have to work out their situations the best they can. So
But maybe we're looking at, maybe in light of that, since times have changed so much, maybe we are struggling with the sociology of what's going on. See, when we are in ministry, we must understand the society that we live in, the age we live in, the type of people that are engaging in that society. What's the current environment? And a lot of times that environment is dictated by politics, finances, and what becomes the prevailing values of a people. So to all of our preachers out there, I believe that we should be better at understanding society as a whole, so that we don't find ourselves so much friction with the change, and we understand the change and allow God to give us an insight as to what is our execution in the new age.
I think for me,
Mm-hmm.
I see it as the friction of churches don't understand that each church has its own mission. And when each church has its own mission, they're going to have a different type of people that they have to minister to. And when you have a different type of people that you minister to, then you may have to cultivate your ministry to you have to cultivate your ministry to speak to that particular group of people. So we have to understand that each church has a different mission. And to me, what Tye Tribbett was saying, I understand the context, because he appears to me to be a church planter. So that would be consistent with someone who is a church planter to say that I think church as it is today doesn't suit me and doesn't suit a whole lot of people. And the people that would agree with him,
Mm-hmm.
would want to have church that's different. And it's just like any type of institution that we have today. We have people that are not happy with all types of institutions, educational institutions,
Right.
political institutions. They feel like these things are not serving them, their lives, how they live, and what they feel is their mission and purpose in life.
Right.
So we can't, I guess, get upset. I think we need to be more understanding of each person's mission and focus. I mean, Tye Tribbett is going after his music,
Right.
has always been, going after an unchurched or a younger crowd or a group of people that is from a different culture. So how can you get mad that he would have that perspective? I would expect him to have that.
Right. Right. But the problem is that I think that we put a requirement on each other to be the same.
Right.
So I think part of our societal problem is, and it's not limited to church, but we tend to have these cluster mentalities. And I used to call it gang mentality. Fall in line, do it the way we do it. If you don't do it the way we do it, it's wrong. Well, the only standard is the word of God. At the end of the day, the only standard is God's word. Now, how it's packaged is a different conversation. So whether it's packaged in a hymn or it's packaged in a turned up Tye Tribbett or Lecrae song. So the litmus test is, does it give glory to God, and is it doctrinally correct?
Right.
So for instance, you might be turned up, but it might be the most biblically sound thing.
Right.
And then the other, on the flip side, it could sound like a traditional hymn. It could be full of biblical error.
Right.
So God is not wrapped up in necessarily the style of music in that case. Can we also ask the question, is God wrapped up in the style of your worship? Because style is always subjective to whatever society you're from. So how we do it in America, I know there are all kinds of ways that people worship around the world. Are we saying that God does not see them? No, I don't believe we could say that. I don't think many people would say that once we understand that different people have different cultures and different styles. Where the rub is in what he said was that he used the word whack. And once he said whack, all reason went out the window. Everybody, a lot of people stopped hearing anything else after the word whack, but we did not get into the context of what he was saying. And he said that he felt that the church was supposed to be more about the people, but we've made it that the people have to be more about the church. But the elaboration upon that was needed. That, and this is what I teach, is that the church is part family and part institution. But God invests in the family above all things. The institution rises on the strength of that family. If the family's weak, the institution will naturally be weak. So, and because we've poured so much into the institution of church, we're losing the nature of what it is to be in the body of Christ. But I've seen particularly some pastors, friends of mine, that were really not very happy with what he said because it was taken as a personal attack.
I don't know if they took it as a personal attack. I think that they think church is cool. And to them, it's not whack. So whack and cool is subjective to each person. Tye's saying it's whack to him. He don't like it because it has turned him off. And the other three people that were guests on that show, I'm sorry, not the guests, the host, they agreed with him on certain points, and he asked them, why don't they go?
Right.
And they said, one of them, DJ Envy, said, man, it's too long.
Right.
And if people would really be honest, okay, I have been in church services like, oh my gosh, it's too long.
Well, I'm a pastor and I'm sitting in the same.
Like, okay, so I could understand.
I'm gonna tell y'all, everybody.
It's too long.
Look, I'm part of the pulpit, and I'm sitting up there sometimes saying, why are we still doing this? I mean, if we sometimes we're adding too many words to what we have to say. Which we use the term long-winded. But I said, I think we should have a service for the people who want to be there all day, and we should have a service for the people who can only stand for about an hour or hour 15, hour half. Because some people want to be there longer. If you go to other countries and preach, if you preach an hour, they're going to look at you and ask you, is that it? They want you to preach 2 hours. So attention spans, willingness to listen for a period of time, again, is based upon who you're with. For me, if you're saying something of substance, I can be there as long as it's flowing. But once it's into rambling on and words that are empty and they really have no spiritual foundation, and the preacher is just busy trying to get a reaction from the crowd instead of preaching and teaching the word, then you lose me. Right. And I'm a preacher. So I think that we should have an honest family conversation between us all and say, can we be of substance when we come into the house of God? Can we try to bring as much power or whatever? And then when it's over, it is over.
But also, can we understand that some people don't want to be there, and why it is that they don't want to be there? And sometimes people feel very uncomfortable when they don't go to church every Sunday, or maybe they have a different type of job that they might be really tired at 11 o'clock. Maybe they need a 4 o'clock service.
Yeah, because there are people that do work overnight.
Feel, demonized and ostracized because they're not fitting the standard a lot of times. And I think that we need to be mindful that people's lives are so different.
People's lives are much more different than they used to be because the way people work is so much different. Mm-hmm. And like you said, we live in a transient society. So people don't necessarily live somewhere longer than 3 years. Right. So because of those dynamics, can we have a little more empathy from the pulpit for the people? That the situations are so diverse that we need to seek God as to how do we minister in this age to a new generation that, one, requires a new sound, not leave those who love the old sound behind, and also be able to collectively across ministries ask one another, are we meeting the needs of the people? Are we better accountable to one another and asking each other, are we meeting the needs of God's people? And so that we're not living in our individual bubbles where we are singularly carrying out what we're doing without any global context of ministry. So if you all have anything that you would like to add to the conversation, feel free. But we wanted to be able to share with this idea.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I was thinking because I thought about it and I lost it, but I was thinking that it's not generational.
Okay.
I know some older people.
That's true. That is
true. Are not with it. Okay.
Right,
I know
right.
some younger people that love traditional church.
Yeah.
Okay. They are all into it.
Some of our kids love traditional gospel
yeah,
music and
traditional, not just the
style.
music, but
yeah.
I don't think it's an age thing.
Mhm.
I think it just has to do with people understanding that each church has a different mission.
Right.
And so when we understand that each church has a different mission, we don't see church as a monolithic thing. That each church has a specific thing that it's trying to accomplish. Like our ministry, we defined early as an evangelistic teaching ministry.
Right.
Like we are here, Latter Rain World Outreach. We are here to reach out far, wide, and beyond. Now, if you just want to be in your little town bubble, this might not be the place for you.
Right.
But if you want to meet people from around the world, you want to see how somebody else does something on the other side of the globe, you want to help a child somewhere that you've never been, or have increase your cultural awareness and capacity, then this is the place for you. Right. If you want to do stuff the same way you did it when your mom, your dad, your cousin had the church, your grandmother, your grandfather, this might not be the place for you. Right. And we have to be okay with that and not look down on each other's churches, but be respectful that and understand what each ministry is about and what they do. Yeah.
You know, though, I would encourage everyone today, find a pastor and hug him today, because he might not be very happy. Because I did see a broad reaction. I mean, I'm connected to so many pastors all over.
So people didn't notice when people weren't coming to church that perhaps there was a reason.
Some pastors don't notice people aren't in there for some reason. I have to be honest, folks, I mean, I would walk in or see, and I'm saying, does the pastor know that they need to go get some people? I mean, because sometimes we are just caught up in what we're doing, not realizing that there's a need for us to now stimulate growth in the church, whether we go out evangelistically. We used to do street reach, so I used to go out and go get the people. Now, not everyone is equipped to do that type of ministry, but maybe you feed people, maybe you do sick visitations, or maybe you do more of grief ministry. Whatever way you go out, you have to touch people, and Jesus said to compel them. That is in the kingdom sense, but if you make a connection with the people, you will begin to see growth in your church. But if you're constantly in there just doing rinse and repeat, and the church is dwindling and don't notice it, that's a different conversation.
Well, I mean, I think all churches are dwindling. Well, not all. That's not true. Some churches are actually rapidly growing. I think that I just see it a little bit differently. I feel like local brick and mortar churches have to do local brick and mortar things. Like if you're in the community, then you got to be in the community.
Well, don't have the brick and mortar and don't do the brick and mortar things.
Right, you got to do brick and mortar things. If you a church plant, then I hope and pray that you are over the internet, okay? Because if you're a new church, you got to do new church things, which is media and technology and finding new ways to reach people, because that's what new church plants do, what church planters do. We find new areas, we find new ways of getting the message out to people.
Right.
So,
Having
yeah,
planted churches myself, it's been a different experience every time.
right,
Some may have been more traditional than others.
right.
They grew, and those churches stabilized, and they carried out whatever the mission was. But that mission was in alignment with the people that they ministered to. So you just, I would say the answer is church whack. Church in itself is not whack. What he was really trying to say, the way we do church can be whack because it was out of line with the church does not really serve the people as much as we're trying to make the people serve the institution. So that's where he got caught up. And that's where people got a little upset because it sounded like he was saying church is whack, period.
Well, they clearly didn't listen to the whole interview, because he clarified. In my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
I felt he clarified why he was saying that the institution. He was also speaking about the way leadership is decided and promoted. But that's in any institution, right? Every institution becomes political, right? Just like in colleges, you have tenured professors that have been there a long time, so they get the next job. And some people say, well, they're not the greatest teacher, or they're not the most effective, or they're boring. Or, I mean, so it's just, to me, that's just the nature of how things are. For him, he's a church planter, he's an evangelist, and he's going to go after people who agree with the fact that they don't like church as it is because it doesn't fit them, and that's definitely his crowd. So,
right. Well, everybody, well, I appreciate you all coming on today. But yeah, we have a, I believe this is going to be a continual conversation in different forms as we go on in the work of the ministry. We have to all be open minded with one another and open eared when something is said, so that we don't mistreat each other. I don't think we should cancel Tye today. I think he should be okay. He should be marked safe from the Breakfast Club. And I think that we can be able to move forward from this and take this opportunity within this conversation to take it and to evaluate what is ministry today in my neck of the woods. What is ministry in, in my calling and to the people I'm called to? And then we can do that. And this way, everyone can say, church is wonderful. Church is great. It's changed my life. It's and things like that. And I love giving to the church. I love building up the ministry, building up the church. I love building up my pastor or the evangelist that I support or the missionaries I support, whatever it may be, the schools that the church has spawned. And in this case, we are better for it if we just take an approach that we are much more open-minded and open-eared.
but Pastor Darrell,
Uh-huh.
for some people, saying I love church is like saying I love school. Okay, not everybody.
Uh-huh.
Not everybody is getting it all the time. Okay, some people are falling. They're doing their best, but to say that everybody loves church would be like to say everybody loves school.
Well,
we're all there to learn and grow.
I mean, shout out to the drive pastors out there. Shout out to the drive ministries.
I know some people say I hate school.
We're praying for you. That's all I can say. We're praying for the drive churches. We're praying for the drive ministries. Or some churches
like it quiet.
Some people do like it quiet. They like it as quiet as possible.
They like it quiet
and as few people as possible, because I've heard many people say a lot of times, we don't need no more members in here. I'm fine the way it is. I've heard that over and over again where people don't want to add to the church because they feel it's a disruption to their little circle. But we can't do that, folks. We have to add to the church. The book of Acts said that the church was added to daily. So,
well, what about, I don't know. What about if you don't want to do that and, deal with that part? Why not support an evangelist? Why not church?
I think we'll teach on that.
Support someone else who does want to do the stuff that you don't want to do. That way, it's getting done. And you're supporting.
Yeah, we'll touch on that another time, because that was a challenge for me starting in ministry, because I didn't start as a pastor. I was an evangelist for 10 years, and in the region where I come from, evangelists or evangelism or organized evangelism was not such a big thing. And my support came from around the country more than it did even from my own hometown. So we have to talk about that. But I think that's a way bigger conversation.
Okay. So as a church, we as a church body, we don't understand that the head, the arms, the feet, the legs, the toes,
the different functions,
and how they function.
Yes,
okay, so we gotta work on that.
That's a whole nother conversation. Everybody, we're gonna get off here. We be sure to tune into the President's State of the Union at 8:00 today. You can get a chance to listen to that in a way. I don't want to bump up against that. Thanks, and some of you got to go ahead and get ready for tomorrow. But thanks for listening and sharing in. If you have any further comments, go ahead and keep commenting on the video. Send us a message. We'll be putting up some more of these. And make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Believe Broadcasting, and handle your business radio at HYB Radio, and the other one is at Believe Broadcast. And I appreciate you guys. So this is Overseer Daryl Elliott and
Lady Kim Elliott.
All right. Love you guys. You all have a good night, and God bless.